You're listening to Turi Writer's She Said What podcast. I'm Turi, along with Marcy Persky. In this installment, the AI product review. No, I don't mean we're reviewing AI, the other way around. Also, when things that are clean are worse than when they're dirty, and how to write a review of something that was truly awful without exactly saying that it was truly awful. I read a story today in the Washington Post that made me think of you. I know how active you were with your union when you were writing for UPI, back when there was a UPI to actually write for.
Right.
Well, the guild in New York, the newspaper guild, they represent the Times and Reuters and all these other outlets.
Yeah, we were actually a subsidiary of the newspaper guild.
There you go. So they noticed over at Gannett that some of the reviews that were posted weren't being posted by anybody they recognized and were suspiciously similar. And apparently, apparently, if the guild is correct, written by AI bots. So
I knew that was coming.
So, it's bad enough when people who are shills or taking kickbacks from some company or getting a percentage of whatever they sell are writing the review. But imagine buying a product because a non-existent computer entity tried it out first.
Do you remember a show that was on like a million years ago, and it was called Max Headroom?
Yeah.
Yeah, every time I think of that big head, whenever I think about AI, and it's that head speaking or that head like dictating. But yeah, I'm sure that there are AI bots that are going to start doing everything, including plagiarizing things that were written by people, taking bits and pieces and putting them together. Then they're not going to need us to do anything.
Well,
They won't even need us to podcast.
well,
They'll be like Turdy bots and Mercy bots.
Oh, to that point, a friend of mine was contacted by a service that would take our podcast and make little tweets and twerps and whatever out of it. I said to my friend who's reviewing this software, a non-human being couldn't possibly do that. This podcast that you are listening to right now is just too weird. If you just randomly take a section out of it, you'll jump off a building. You'll feel that you've lost any tether to reality. And the only thing worse I can think of would be buying, let's say, a kitty thermometer that's never been tested on a kitty. It's bad enough if you buy a vacuum recommended by somebody who has neither house nor filth. But now imagine or animals, right? Imagine now sticking your little one under one of those rolling forehead thermometer gaugers, which has been recommended by a computer that needs to be kept in a refrigerated room.
The one thing that like freaked me out this morning I saw on TV is that down in Phoenix, where nobody knows how to drive anyway, they have Lyft or Uber has one of those two has started the new service with nobody driving. And you're not allowed to say that you want a driver or not. These are cars that drive themselves.
Wait. You are allowed to say whether you want to share your ride, and you are allowed to say whether you want one of their luxury cars, but you're not allowed to say
if you want a
car with no driver at all.
And it's really creepy too. I mean, they obviously had someone with a camera sitting in one of those cars as it drove around Phoenix, and like the steering wheel is moving. You know, all you think about is like the Invisible Man or something, you know? Because it's really, really creepy.
I would not get into that car.
And me either.
I'm curious to see whether people just decline when the car shows up.
I'm going to keep you updated on that.
I want to know.
It was very creepy to watch it live on TV, driving around. I mean, I can't say anything. I'm just like flabbergasted. A car with no driver.
I do know that Arizona was very welcoming to the testing of those ghost vehicle cars. And then they got landed on their ear when a serious accident occurred.
Yep. And now they're on the road.
Do they just think we forgot?
Yep. They're going, okay, everybody that's in Arizona is pretty much a snowbird or some old person that moved here because of tax reasons. So they're not going to remember that these driverless cars really don't work. So let's just scam them, send them over, and we'll just keep going until there's another big wreck. Like Death Race 2000, but no drivers.
I want to know if the AI driver says, "So how is your day going?"
Oh man, wouldn't that be awful if it like spoke to you?
I don't know what would be worse.
I don't know. The whole thing is awful. And I picture like Phoenix. There's gonna be like bicycles riding down the street with no rider, you know, and motorcycles with no rider.
That might be the only thing that gets me back on Chicago Transit's rolling homeless shelter known as the Red Line.
I wonder though if the invisible driver of the cars are invisibly texting while they're
Oh,
driving.
good
And
question.
how would you know if it's invisible?
They could
That's
be,
very
but they
concerning.
could be doing other things while they're driving.
Like picking their invisible noses, putting on invisible lipstick.
Yeah, yeah. The thing about how is your day going, that seems to be the new part of the training for any sort of customer service now.
I just
Uh,
say crap. Get me out of here.
I just say, I have people I can talk to about my day. I'm calling you to talk about my phone plan.
There you go.
And they think that their customers are desperate for some sort of human interaction. So while you're waiting to find out if you're eligible for the bargain price new phone, you need to talk about your day. Like if I needed to talk to you about my day, I wouldn't need a new phone because I'd have nobody to call.
You know what? If it was like the government, like I don't know if you've ever had to call Social Security or the IRS or any of those, and they always leave you on hold for 2 hours with the worst music.
Yeah, tell them about your day.
Like, well, I got out of bed at 8 o'clock. I brushed my teeth. I pooped. I went and fed all my animals. I had to poop again. Then I watched TV again and just go down the whole day. So, yeah, I guess you wouldn't want to tell the IRS exactly how your day was.
No, you know, my favorite is when they come
Yes.
back after putting you back on hold for 45 minutes and they say, "Thank you for patiently waiting." And I'm thinking, how do you know how patiently I've been waiting? For all you know, I've thrown every pot and pan in my house at the wall by now. I guess they're kind of doing that manifesting thing. I will manifest goodwill by saying thank you for patiently waiting, and therefore I will make the person be patiently waiting.
In the olden days, I would have sat out on my front deck and just downed a pack of cigarettes while I was
I
patiently
can't
waiting.
do that now. No.
I don't do that now, so I can't patiently wait. There's my excuse right there.
I think that that's probably a legit answer when they say, "And how is your day going?" You say, "Well, I just quit smoking. How do you think it's going?" I think that says everything.
There you go.
I think after you say
Yeah.
that, there's really nothing you need to add.
I actually, after everything that went bad today,
Uh,
do not want a cigarette for the first time in three
well,
weeks.
that's one good thing. Thank you for
So
patiently waiting.
I shoved my mouth so full of gum. Frankie came home yesterday with this great big thing that someone gave him full of what is it? It's the bubble gum that has the comics in it.
Bazooka.
Yep, bazooka bubble gum with the little comics in it, with Bazooka Joe.
Yes.
And man, I forgot how bitter that tastes after chewing it for like 3 minutes. It's like chewing aspirin.
I cannot chew gum. It's not a coordination problem. Theoretically, I could chew gum and walk at the same time if I could walk in a coordinated way, which I can't. But I just my jaw. I just don't understand how people can chew gum at all.
Well, here's the problem with chewing gum, because I'm surprised I can even talk. But yesterday, I took the biggest chunk out of the inside of my cheek. I mean, like huge, like spitting out blood chunk.
Oh dear.
And I'm like,
And let me guess.
what?
You put
I
the
have to be
gum
able to.
you put the
Oh,
gum back in your mouth after that, right? The blood-soaked gum you put back
well,
in your
yeah,
mouth.
gave it better taste than that aspirin.
Oh,
But I can't eat anything salty now because it burns.
I'm sorry. Very,
Yeah,
very
yeah. So
sorry.
that's one of the hazards of quitting smoking is losing the inside of your cheeks because you can't even sit and chew gum, let alone walk.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
I hadn't contemplated the whole. There are things you don't contemplate that then come out at you in the moment when they present a difficulty or when they remind you of something. Like today, I was at the pool, and I've been swimming at this pool now for what, 3 years? And for 3 years, every time I go to one end or the other, I think, it's a stainless steel gutter and it's really kind of grimy, and I don't understand why they don't clean this off sometimes. And every time when they close the pool for renovation and I come back, I hope maybe they've cleaned off that. It'd be like if you never washed the outside of your stainless steel pot, right?
Right.
Well, finally, today they have a new park director and she's been on the job for a couple months now. And I got in the pool and they had cleaned the 52 years of chemical deposit and gunk and people's suntan lotion off the inside gutter of the pool. And on the one hand, I was really thrilled. And on the other hand, I thought, I've been swimming in this filth for 3 years. It's disgusting. Sometimes you're better off not knowing what things are like when they're clean. So,
you know what? There are little places, though, that I find all over in my house that are just disgusting.
Yeah.
Because when I stand and I look at my house, it looks pretty clean. But if I stand up on the counter and look at the top of my refrigerator, for example, or at the molding up against that connects the ceiling to the wall.
Yep. But sometimes you do know. And sometimes then you see it really clean and you regret. Like I went to visit my kid in Toronto. Mm-hmm. And we had one of these surreal conversations like you can only have with your kid, where you summon up the nerve to say, what you really want to use on the inside of the bathtub is something a little bit abrasive because it's got 3 years of foot grime on it. So, and then the kid says, I sprayed it with the chlorine bleach liquid. I'm like, abrasive. But it's clean. I'm like, okay, it's clean, but what part of abrasive do you, it's just kind of, you wish you'd never started. You just.
At what age, though, do we get so picky about, were we like that when we were in our 20s?
I've always been the clean bathroom queen. I've always been like, I've always.
See, I think I was more lackadaisical. I couldn't, it wasn't scummy. But no, I had more important things to do than scrub out my bathtub.
I will tell you one reason I cared. One reason I cared was 2 reasons. One was I had internalized that, what if you die on the way to your class and this is how they find your house, right? And the other was, I lived in Boston, and Boston had vermin, and the vermin would come out of I didn't want to give them any reason to visit me. Like, I didn't want...
But they crawl out of your toilet?
They'll crawl out of your bathtub drain.
That's why I've never been to Boston.
That's why? Well, that's, I suppose, as good a reason as any. I hadn't thought about it, but, any big city, you have to be mindful. I stayed at an Airbnb that had a couple of nice pictures online and was near the Small Cuties residence. And I thought, well, it can be Spartan. It can be Spartan, but it shouldn't be disgusting. So now I'm having a crisis of conscience where I don't want to leave them a review that says there were 2 baby roaches in the bathroom and the molding doesn't connect to the floor and there's no chair anywhere in the entire place to sit down on when it's
why wouldn't you write that?
Filthy and disgusting. Because I don't want to make trouble for them. They're trying. They're like, and I don't want them to leave. I don't want. I'm just going to say nothing. I'm going to go with my father's advice. My father of blessed memory. If you can't say something nice,
you're just setting up some other poor woman to come in and find roaches in the bathtub and a single bar stool to sit on.
I don't.
Like if you don't report a criminal, then they'll just prey on someone else.
Well, I've heard the adage human cockroach, but I don't think it applies here. I think you're a little bit.
These Airbnbers as predators.
I think that there are ways of saying, I can write a review that if you read between the lines, you will know that you should avoid this place. I'm just
going to write it in code.
Kind of. I'm just going to run into trouble on the
Vulcan.
star rating. The star rating is where I will run into trouble.
Can you write in Sanskrit? So that, and
What?
then you just give them half a star.
You can read between the lines when it says, conveniently located, welcoming host. Period. That's how you know. In fact, I may have seen that review about our podcast, come to think of it. Assuming you've come this far because you enjoy the podcast, may we recommend my book, She Said What? A Life on the Air. It's available at your neighborhood bookstore or on Amazon. And if you're feeling especially generous, please leave the podcast a good review. Thanks.